Hello everyone, my name is Brendan from Digital Mint. You're watching Tutorial Tuesday, where we do visual effects, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Anyway, we're gonna get right into this. Last week we did air, this week we're gonna do fire. So right now our fire elements that are lined up here, fire 02, 03, 04, and torch windy from the Action Essentials Toolkit, and then this is my own fireball composite element that I created. If I can get this out, I'll put this somewhere in the description, hopefully, if everything works. But those are elements, and to start off, we're going to go back to our composition, and we're going to drop the quality down to 1/3 on this right now. And then we are going to turn off our layers here, and we're actually going to toggle the switches modes, and then we're actually going to shy these layers right here, and then we'll just hit the shy switch, so that'll clean up our work area a bit, so we have a bit of a cleaner area to work with here. And we're going to find which time we want our stuff to start. So let's start having our fire elements come in right here. So we're going to hit Shift-1 to set a marker there. We'll go back a few frames, then press B, start our work area, and then right at the end here, we'll hit N to end our work area. So this is where we're working right now. And with that all set, I'm actually going to turn this displacement off too. Let's actually name this air displacement so we don't get confused. We're also going to have some fire displacement as well, so we want to make sure we name all our stuff and we stay nice and organized. We also have the shy switch there. And now what we're going to do to start off is we're actually just going to composite some elements right in here over our fire. That way we'll actually have something to ignite once we shoot all of our fire. So let's grab fire 03 right now. Drag and drop this in. Move this here, we'll hit Y, and we'll just move our anchor point sort of towards the base of this fire. And then we'll scale everything down, so we can just hold down Shift, and that'll scale linearly. And we'll just drop it in here. And then we can even just sort of use this mask to exclude anything that would go out. An M, and then subtract, and then maybe feather that 5 pixels. We can also change our transfer mode, and we'll put this on, try add, looks pretty good. And then, how does this play? You can scale this down just a little more. Not too intense. Then we'll even grab fire 04, and we'll do something pretty similar here. Get our anchor point, move that there. Scale her down. Rotate it just a bit. Can drop this guy maybe here. Add. Duplicate this one more time. Bring it up here, so it sort of looks like it's coming in between sort of these two logs here, and then this one will also sort of cut out there. Then just feather this one a bit. Unlike that, even go more in the horizontal direction. And yeah, that looks pretty good for now. We can come back and color correct this later. And right now we're just going to hide these. And now we're going to deal with our stuff over here. So let's take our fireball element, drag and drop this guy in. Now it comes in with a black background. If we set this to add, or also screen, I think we're going to stick with add, especially we did set up our comp with linear working space. Let's actually switch this to 32 bits. And this is going to help our fire and stuff blend a bit better, because linear is closer to the way light reacts in the real world. So if we were actually shooting fireballs, then this is a bit closer to what it's going to look like. Let's set everything up here. So let's go hit P on the keyboard, hold on Shift S, and we'll actually scale this a bit too. So we'll start our fireball kind of small here. We'll keyframe position, and then sort of go out here. And then we'll hit Got that. Then we'll hit our fire here. So, whoosh, and it flies out. How's the speed on that? A little fast. Let's bring it out maybe 2 frames. A little slow. 1 frame. Right there. Nice. Then we can also take our scale, can set a keyframe here, and then on the last frame, can really let that grow so it really becomes nice and intense. We really light that fire. 35 for that. All right, nice. So now I got that. Now let's get kind of like the look of the flamethrower. So it's sort of like, so this ball is sort of gonna like lead our fire, and that's gonna leave behind like a trail, as well as, you know, some of that just leftover stuff. So now actually go into, we'll take fire O2, drag and drop this guy. Right now we're gonna hide this, and we'll even solo that against a black background so we can see what's going on. So our fire is moving to the left already, so that's good. If we were shooting fire from, for example, if we're shooting fire from here over to here, from the left to the right, we might want to flip it so our fire sort of travels in the direction that our character actually shoots it. We'll move our anchor point over here to the base, and we can use that as basically a rotation point. So we can just stick this on our hand. That'll be the base of our position and our rotation and scale and everything. So when we start moving that around, makes everything easy. But for right now, let's just reset our rotation. Let's worry about how we're going to animate this. So we're going to get a mask. We're going to get a big old rectangle mask. We're going to put this around just like this. And now what we want to do is we'll adjust the timing on it later. But we want it to come out of the hand first. So we'll set our feather, hit F. Right about here. Bring this guy back. Hit M on the keyboard. Hit a keyframe for our mask path. We'll go forward maybe 5 frames. And then we'll drag this guy out. And then we'll go forward another 5 frames. And I'll drag this guy back here. So now what our fire looks like is our fire comes out and then goes away. Now we can adjust the keyframes later on when we put this in for animation. And obviously we'll align that so it matches closer to our actual fireball that we have. So I'll unsolo this right now. Come in here and let's get this guy in position. So remember we set our anchor point right here, so we can stick our anchor point right on the hand. And then we can hit W for our rotation tool. Rotate that so it lines up with where we want to shoot our fire. Then we'll even scale this guy down. So we get something like that. We even get this guy a bit taller like that. That's nice. All right, so now we can duplicate this layer. We'll go to the bottom one here, and similarly to last time, we will flip it. So we get sort of that symmetric look. Now we do want to add a bit of variation. We don't want it to look like it's perfect symmetry. So we can actually offset the time on this. Or actually, we're going to hit U. And then we're going to just drag this over, and then we'll bring our points back. So now our timing's a bit different. And then you can scale it out a little bit. So we get something like this. That should sort of fill everything up. Also to help out, change the transfer mode back to add. Blends a bit better, even with between the elements themselves. And now let's retime this so this matches up with our fireball. So I'll show our fireball. So let's bring these forward 1 frame. And then let's actually maybe even just take the position on the fireball and cheat it up a little bit so it sort of stays in line a bit better. Nice. All right, cool. So now that's there. And then pretty much it definitely needs to come out a bit slower here. U on both of these guys to reveal our keyframes. And then we want this to end even a bit slower. So that way our trail doesn't really outpace the fire itself. So right there, I think that works, even though there's a little bit left over. That's okay. And then take our last few keyframes here, drag these out. Let's actually take both of these and scale them in so they don't really go too fast. There we go. Now, this needs to come out a bit sooner. So what we can actually do is we'll take this guy, shift this over, and then we can actually retime all these so we can show our masks again. And what we can do is we can just retime these on each of these. So that one sort of falls, and then by the time it gets to here, this is probably when we want the other guy to come in. So set keyframe on both of these, and then we'll go to actually delete these, and then we can actually just undo that. And then we should just be able to grab this guy and drag it in. So now the back will start to come in, actually even maybe one more frame here. So right as that hand starts to come down, that's when our fire begins to end. We'll also take our fireball, and on the last frame where it stops, we'll just hit Alt end bracket to stop, and then on our first frame, we'll hit Alt begin bracket. That'll prevent that from staying in there for any longer than it needs to be. You can also do the same with our fire. So if we get both of these, Alt begin bracket, and at the end of the animation, once they're all gone, Alt end bracket. That way we don't have too much of that stuff taking up space. So that's looking a bit better. Now we're getting there. We can even go and say right up when this fireball hits here, we can take these guys, we can actually hit Alt begin bracket, and now those will show up right as this guy hits. We'll probably even fade those in, but once we figure out the timing, we'll go back and do that. So there we are with these guys. That's getting there. We're going to Torch Windy now, and what we can do is we'll solo our fireball and then our background. Take our Torch Windy, drag and drop it in. Hit Y on the keyboard. We'll move our anchor point down to the base, sort of around where this sphere of fire is almost. Actually, our base is up here. Just move that right there. Hit W, rotate that, and then we'll go to our fireball, and we'll find where it's in a position right sort of here in the middle. And we'll try to finesse this so it sort of looks like this flame is really coming off the edges of this fireball. So move that anchor point, scale it down a bit. Right in here, it can be a bit smaller, especially once we set this to add for our transfer mode. And I think we'll actually thin this guy out a bit, rotate it up just a bit more. Sort of set him in there. And we'll set this guy to add, and then we'll parent it to our fireball element. So now it's going to stick there. Actually, might even scale down the fire a bit more. It does get pretty big, especially in the beginning. It's still way up in the face here. And so we'll go hit Alt begin bracket here. So this is where it comes in. We'll hit T for opacity. And we'll set a keyframe right here, where we say we want this to be full opacity at this point. We'll go back to the beginning, and we can really drop the opacity out on this. Maybe just a little bit there at the beginning. So then it sort of comes in, and then it really goes full force. And then it hits. And then we'll say hit a keyframe here, and we'll go forward 2 frames, fade out to nothing, Alt end bracket to end the layer. So now we have a fireball, we have some fire really flying off the back of it. And then it hits, and then it ignites our fire here. Actually, see. With this guy, we'll just grab a mask here. We'll just hit M and subtract that out, just so there's not that little bit extra that sort of leans over too much. So here we go. So here's like our basic look. What we can also do is we can go into our fireball. We'll just switches and modes. We can hit motion blur. We'll put a torch just below our fireball. Also hit motion blur, and then turn motion blur on for the comp. So you do lose a bit of that detail, but actually go to our fireball, hit P, and then we'll actually just drag this out. Oh, I'll do that. Go forward 1 frame and drag it out, so that way it actually keeps its motion blur right at the end. And you can just bring that back a frame so it just goes and then pops out. Actually, even on this frame, bring it back just a bit so it looks like it slows down a bit. Nice. Now the next step right now is, now that we sort of got all this tuned pretty well actually. So bam, and then we sort of set everything. You can always go in here and like blur this out a little bit. It is maybe a little sharp still, but that's subtle things you can do on your own to just help settle the composite in a bit more. What we can do now is we can take all of our fire elements and we're going to duplicate these. We'll sort of stick them on top, and then we'll right click, pre-compose, and we're going to name this our fire displacement. Hit OK. That's going to give us a new comp. We'll go in here and we will do layer new solid. We'll set this to 50% gray, so brightness at 50%. Hit OK, make that thing, drop it on the bottom here. So now we have this guy. So this is all of our fire right here. And what we can do is put a adjustment layer on this. And on the adjustment layer, we'll put a blur. We'll just put a fast blur on here. Set this to maybe 8 pixels. Keep everything soft. And then let's go into a few of these elements. So say fire 2, do color correction, do levels. Actually bring the contrast up on this. And actually on this adjustment layer, we will also go effect, color correction, tint. And then go in here, we'll adjust this. We'll make some of this, let's actually bring this a bit brighter. So we'll make this a bit hotter and white. And then we'll actually go to the bottom one, effect, color correction, levels. We'll darken this one. We go this top one. For this, we can put this on screen maybe. Yeah. So now it doesn't block out too much of this darker part. Let's get some real contrast here for when we do apply that displacement. And then these bottom fire layers should be pretty good like that. I'm just going to select these. I'm actually just going to scale them up a little bit. Actually, maybe even do this for like our top fire piece here. So that way our displacement really goes above where the actual fire is. And then go to our adjustment layer and we'll just do effect, brightness contrast. Maybe just boost the contrast a little bit. Now we don't want to change the actual background here. We want to make sure that stays at 50% gray. That way, when we use it as a displacement map, the stuff that isn't, anything that is gray won't actually be displaced. Let's go back to our bending comp. We can hide our fire displacement. We'll put it down on the bottom just above our bending layer. Go to layer, new, adjustment layer. And we'll put this just below that displacement. Effect, distort, displacement map. Select our displacement. And we'll set this to luminance for our displacement. And so if I just solo the adjustment layer and our background, right now it's still pretty subtle, but you're going to get this displacement on there. Let's bring our horizontal displacement up to 20, vertical displacement up to maybe 40 or so. And what does this look like once we put our fire back on there? It's pretty intense here, so I think we're actually going to go in. Actually, it's pretty intense all around, so probably not that much. Let's try 16 for horizontal and 20 for our vertical. It's actually still quite intense. Do 16, 12. And we'll go back into our displacement map. Let's bring down the contrast. Could even make it negative. Maybe even bring our blur to 10 on that guy. And then go to our bending. We'll hit Control C on our bending, our plate here. Go to our fire displacement, Control V to paste it. Put that just above the light gray and right click and we'll select guide layer on this. And we'll go right here to the end. And we'll take this light gray solid, we'll hit Control D to duplicate it, and we'll actually make a selection out of the base here. Hit M, or feather it, and then put this above everything, really. So that should cut out that displacement around the bottom there, so we don't get like, we don't end up with this weird stuff bending over here. Let's actually bring that up even more. Nice. Then a bit more feathering on that. That way this thing isn't getting all bent out of shape here. And then so behind the fire, the displacement's really intense. And then everything else sort of keeps it. And then even afterwards, you know, we get a bit of that coming off the actual fire that stays. So that's actually pretty close. Let's actually even go to our fireball here, hit T for opacity, and we'll fade this out over 2 frames. So that sort of dies out there. Nice. So I went and imported another one of these guys. This one's Smoke 3. And what we can do, bring this guy over here. And we'll press Y, pan behind tool, and we'll move our anchor point down there. And let's sort of place this in here. We'll hit W to rotate, and then we'll flip it. And let's get rid of this edge. this guy. Hit M, subtract F for feather. You can sort of feather that out so it's not too sharp. And now let's do something similar to what we did before. So we get this guy right here. Actually, we may have to do two separate pieces for this guy. So we'll do a subtraction and then an addition. So set this one to subtract, hit F, feather it out, maybe somewhere around 120. Hit M on the keyboard, hit our stopwatch, we'll go forward 4 frames. And bring this up over here to the top. Then we'll take this mask, we'll hit Control-T to duplicate it. And then we'll actually just take this, select both of those keyframes, move it down here to the bottom, and then we'll shift these over 4 frames or so. So this guy comes up, we'll solo this so we can see what's happening. Actually, need to move this guy down a lot more. This guy down to here. So what happens is, actually even take this guy and bring the top up. So this guy comes up and reveals, and this guy does not do at all what it was supposed to do. That's okay. So we have this bottom frame, and then we'll just take this top frame and we'll just do the same thing. We'll shift it up till it covers our image, so it's going to go, so our fire goes whoosh, whoosh, and goes right back out. And Alt end bracket to cut that layer. Go back into our comp. We'll hide the masks here so they're not in the way. I'll move this guy right on top here. So it comes in, goes out up like that. Hit U on the keyboard. I'm going to get these guys back out. So we know this guy ends on this frame here. I'm going to right click, go time stretch. We're going to put this to like 20, so it's going to speed it up by 5 times. And we'll hold down Alt, and we'll drag those back out. That'll stretch our keyframes back to their original length. And now, so our smoke rises much quicker, and we'll actually even scale it down too. So we get something like this. That's really intense. And now what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. We'll duplicate it, say, 4 times, and we'll shift these off. We'll offset all these 1 frame. And then we'll take each one of these progressive ones, and we'll move it to the next part of the image. Till we end up here. Duplicate it even 1 more time. Shift it over. And we'll do even 1 more. Shift it over. Let's take all these, hit S, select 1 at a time. And we'll just randomize the scale on these a bit. Because you don't want them to all be too consistent. And then we can also take all these and hit R. And we'll do the same with rotation. And we'll just rotate them all slightly differently, so they're not too similar. Because we don't want them to be too much of the same thing. So now what happens is our fire comes out and it throws off smoke throughout the whole thing. You can even go in here and like randomize even the timing a bit more on these. I'm not going to do that for the purpose of saving time. Even, let's actually hide our bottom layer here. There's actually a bit of grain in here. That doesn't seem to be a huge deal. We can even, what we're going to do anyways, we're going to take all these pre-compose. We're going to type in smoke as our comp name. go in here, we'll create a new adjustment layer. FX, color correction, curves. Actually, even just take the alpha. We can just bring the cut down just one little notch there, and that'll just take care of that. Maybe even just a little bit of contrast in the alpha. Let's try a generate a fill. We'll fill this with black. Put it before our curves. Go back to our alpha. And then really bring this out. As long as we just have that, we just brought that notch over just a little bit to cut out that extra noise. Now I can get some intense black smoke in here. So I end up with this guy. Now they're really throwing off a lot of really energy when you end up with all that smoke coming out there. Actually, even go to our transfer modes. Switch this to multiply, hit T on the keyboard, and bring the opacity down to 60 or so. Maybe even 70. And we end up with this. So now we have our fire. We got our displacement in the back here. Actually, now that I look at this again, I think I might even bring the displacement up. Actually, 24 and 16. Yeah, so our fire hangs out here. And now, all that's really left to do is just touch up a lot of our color. I'll actually even play this back. Change the resolution here, back to full. Now that I think about it, I think this fire trail needs a bit more actual motion. We'll just make a new solid. Name this our fire matte. I'll actually go solid settings. I'll make this white because I prefer to have my mattes white. And then I'm actually just gonna take this guy, put a matte here, and we'll put this above our fire O2. These are gonna be our fire elements. I'm actually just gonna take these guys and alpha invert. So remember when we shied those other layers here? This fire matte was actually on the top layer and not right above our actual fire. So keep that in mind. Layer order does still matter, even when you shy things away. Just be wary of that. And do the same for this bottom one. We'll actually just take these, hit F, and feather these guys out. Actually, we'll even move them over just a bit. Actually, we're going to hit M. And we're going to move these over like this, that way. Just in case things go off the edge. We'll have a bit of a safety net here. All right. Go to our fire. We'll take our bottom fire and we'll parent this to our top fire. Top fire will hit P on the keyboard. And it's still being wonky. What is up with this? And our rotations are somehow off. It's okay. I want to set this guy back to -26. No, that's not going to work. Okay. So I guess our coordinate system got a little strange when we parented that. Just want to move it. We'll just readjust it. I have no idea why this is happening. But it is. It's okay, though. All right. Now, we should seriously be all set. P on the keyboard for position. And we'll go to maybe this frame right here. We'll hit a keyframe for the position. Go forward. till it ends here, and then let's say by here we want our fire to have moved pretty far. Maybe even offset this back here. And maybe not quite that far. Just enough so that it sort of moves a bit. Go here, hit F9. So now it sort of sticks with the hand a bit longer until it sort of starts to go. But now it really starts to move. There we go. And we'll actually hide our mat here because we don't actually need to see that. So there we go. Now we got some smoke. Smoke's probably actually pretty intense still. So we'll go down here. Set that guy to 50. And now all that's left is to just do a bit of touch up and color correction. So we'll take our fire elements here. These are the ones in the fire pit. And we'll say, select all these, do effects, color correction, curves. Maybe brighten them up a bit. You can go into alpha and sort of mess around with them. Go into blue. Give them some blue contrast. Gives them a lot of vibrance. Actually, we probably don't even want to do that. We'll probably just go to color correction. We'll go tint. Set this guy to like 20. So it isn't too strong. And then this do something weird on me. It totally did, okay. Get rid of these curves. Take this, Control C. Actually, before we even do that, we'll do Effect, Stylize, Glow. Bump it out, maybe here, so. So that throws off some light. Yeah, right about there. We'll select all of these. We'll take all these guys. Hit Control C, copy them, and we'll paste them onto our other layers here. Maybe this top one will bring the intensity 0.3, so it isn't too much. And then we can go to our fire. We'll go to our fire 2. Effect, color correction. Tint this a little bit as well. Put that down to 20. Just so it's not super, super vibrant. Actually, maybe even 15. Color correction, curves. Bring it up a little bit. Pull out just a little blue. Effect, stylize, glow. Do something like that for now. Take all these, Control C, Control V, paste that to our other fire, and then we'll go to our fireball, and we'll just, this one we could probably just add a glow to. Keep this one pretty vibrant. Let's definitely bring up the threshold and the intensity. Bring that down. I do lose a lot of that. Really, pretty much all the detail that was in there earlier, but if you want something strong to lead with, even if you want, you can even make a mat around here, just so it's not like fire isn't quite getting in your face, but and then one last touch, we'll go to new solid. We'll select, get one of these warmer orange colors. Somewhere in here. Hit OK. And this glow. We can actually just go in here, hold down Control. do that. Hit F. Feather that out, so get something like this. Transfer mode, add, hit T. Hit T, bring this down to 25. Probably even less. 15. She'll be this will kind of be like after our fire has been lit, sort of the glow it gives off. Maybe even 10. Bring that down pretty low. You can even hit Alt click on the stopwatch, type in wiggle, and that'll generate a function here. Sort of randomize everything. We'll say 4 comma maybe 4, I guess. So 4 times a second, it's going to adjust this value by 4 up or down. And typos are really bad when you're trying to write code or expression. That's 2 G's and 1 L. So now this will just go like that. And then obviously take this, and what I can do is hide a keyframe there. Go back here. Once that fireball really hits, we'll actually really bring the intensity up. And bring it down to 0 here. Actually even just Alt begin bracket. And then so that comes in, and then it dies down. And then it just sort of fluctuates a little over time as all this happens. So there we go. That's the basic idea. Come in and touch these up a bit more. Even I'd add some blur to this. Maybe even spend a bit more time on color. But that's going to get you pretty close. Maybe even spread the animation a little bit more. Some of this fire does go away pretty quick, and even the smoke. But yeah, just little touch-ups like that. But this is the basic idea for all the compositing. And that is how to firebend. I mean, I don't know. Go out there, practice it, learn it, put to use what you've learned, and that's going to close out this episode of Tutorial Tuesday. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next week.
Try to walk around.
Also, I finished a song that I wrote starting way back in October, actually, and I think that'll be playing now, and that was good to finally finish that. It felt good, even though it's not super professional or anything. I mean, I'm not really a songwriter, but I like to do it in my free time.